He's done it again. That parasitic leech my father unfortunately called stepson. And now, with father barely cold in his grave, David sits there, preening in his ill-fitting suit, as Mr. Henderson, our family lawyer for 3 decades, drones on about the final will and testament of Arthur Pendleton, my father. The air in Henderson's office is thick, heavy with the musty smell of old law books and leather chairs, a scent I usually find comforting, a reminder of Dad's own study. Today, it suffocates, each particle a tiny weight pressing down on me. My hands tremble under the table, so I clench them, nails digging into my palms. Shock, cold and sharp, shatters through me, but beneath it, a familiar fire begins to smolder. Rage. It's a calculated rage, though, honed by years of David's subtle manipulations and my father's blind affection for him. And so, Mr. Henderson adjusts his spectacles, his gaze flicking towards me for a fleeting, almost pitying moment. The entirety of the Pendleton estate, including the primary residence, all liquid assets, and controlling shares in Pendleton Industries, is bequeathed to Mr. David Carter. David nods, a somber expression plastered on his face, a mask of grief that doesn't quite reach his eyes. Those eyes, I see them. They're alight with triumph. He's looking at me, a slight smirk playing on his lips. Bastard. He thinks he's won. He always thinks he's won. The words echo in the stale air, each syllable a hammer blow against the already fractured pieces of my composure. My heart pounds a frantic rhythm against my ribs, a wild bird trapped in a cage. I force myself to remain still, to project an image of defeat. Let him think I'm broken. Let him savor this stolen victory. It will make my eventual triumph all the sweeter. My mind, however, is a whirlwind. How could Dad do this? After all our talks, all his promises? Or did he? The lawyer's voice seems to fade into a distant hum, the scent of old paper and floor wax suddenly sharp, almost acrid in my nostrils. The weight of the betrayal presses down, a physical force making it hard to breathe. David clears his throat. "Ahem, Michael," he says, his voice dripping with false sympathy. "I know this must be a shock. I want you to know I'll take care of everything. Just as Arthur, as Dad, would have wanted." He dares to call him Dad. The audacity burns. I meet his gaze, letting my own reflect a carefully constructed despair. "Yes, David, a shock." My voice is quiet, hoarse. I need to calculate every move from this moment forward. The room feels like it's closing in, the dark wood paneling and the rows upon rows of legal tomes pressing in on me. The faint ticking of a grandfather clock in the hall outside Henderson's office is like a metronome counting down the seconds to... What? My ruin? Or his? I need to think. This can't be right. Dad wouldn't just erase me. Not after everything. Not after Mom died, and it was just us. I feel a cold dread creep up my spine. David has always been manipulative, always whispering in Dad's ear. Could he have orchestrated this? The thought ignites a fresh wave of anger, hotter this time, clearer. Quietly, almost imperceptibly, my hand slides to my phone in my jacket pocket. With a practiced movement, I activate the voice recorder. Let David enjoy his monologue. Let Henderson continue with the legal jargon. Let them both believe I'm just a grieving son, too devastated to question, too weak to fight. The soft whir of the air conditioning unit above is the only sound that seems real for a moment. A mundane counterpoint to the drama unfolding. The texture of the worn velvet chair beneath me is suddenly prominent, its slight abrasiveness a grounding sensation. Henderson is shuffling papers now. There are, of course, some minor personal effects bequeathed to you, Michael. A collection of your father's first editions, his old rowing trophies. He trails off, as if embarrassed by the paltry nature of my inheritance. Minor personal effects, while David gets an empire. The unfairness of it all is a bitter pill, but I swallow it down, forcing a mask of numb acceptance. David is speaking again, something about respecting my father's wishes, about his own profound sadness. The hypocrisy is astounding. It sickens me. I watch him, his gestures expansive, his tone earnest. He's performing, and Henderson, bless his naive old heart, seems to be buying it. Or perhaps he's just too tired, too old to care about the nuances of our broken family. The scent of Henderson's pipe tobacco, usually a comforting aroma from my childhood visits here, now seems cloying, a part of the deception. I need something, a lever, a crack in this fraudulent facade. My gaze drifts around the room, landing on a small, ornate wooden box on a side table. Dad's humidor, and next to it, his favorite fountain pen. The will. It's always about the will. I remember Dad mentioning something a long time ago, about wills, about how they could be complicated. The air feels charged, a subtle shift in the atmosphere that only I seem to notice. My heart thumps with a new, sudden thought. Henderson is saying, and the deed to the lake cottage, while not explicitly mentioned as a separate entity in this version of the will, is considered part of the primary residence's land holdings, and thus passes to Mr. Carter. The lake cottage. That was Mom's favorite place. The place Dad promised would always be mine, a sanctuary. He said it was protected, separate. The words echo in my memory, a faint whisper from a happier time. This version of the will, I ask, my voice barely above a whisper, but sharp enough to cut through David's self-congratulatory air. Henderson looks up, surprised I've spoken. Yes, the one dated March 14th of this year, superseding all previous versions. He gestures to the thick document in front of him. The polished surface of the table reflects the grim set of my jaw, a face I barely recognize. March 14th, just 2 weeks after Dad's final debilitating stroke, a time when he was barely lucid, heavily medicated, vulnerable. The pieces begin to slot into place, forming a sickening picture. David wouldn't have just hoped for this outcome. He would have ensured it. The faint sound of traffic outside, a distant horn, seems to underscore the sudden, chilling clarity. I see, I say, keeping my voice even, devoid of the fury that threatens to consume me. But my mind is racing. This version, that implies there are others. And if David was brazen enough to manipulate Dad on his deathbed, he's capable of anything. The fight isn't over. It's just begun. He's claimed my inheritance at the reading, spewing his lies into the microphone of this formal proceeding. But I've turned off my own internal microphone of despair, and I will keep the deed, the real one. Somehow. My gaze flicks back to Henderson, then to the will he's still holding. There was something else Dad had said once, a throwaway comment during one of our chess games, about Henderson's meticulous, almost archaic habits. He always kept copies, always. And not just digital. He mistrusted clouds, my father had chuckled. He liked paper. The crisp feel of paper, the permanence of ink. That's where the real story might lie. Not in this fraudulent document David was championing, but somewhere in Henderson's dusty, overstuffed files. The sudden, dawning realization is a jolt, a spark in the oppressive gloom. There's a thread. A small, almost invisible thread, but it's there, and I'm going to pull it until David's entire world unravels. The scent of lemon polish from the table, a mundane detail, suddenly feels like the smell of a battlefield waiting for the first shot to be fired. The game is on. The drive away from Henderson's office is a blur. The city streets, usually a vibrant tapestry of life, are just gray shapes rushing past. My mind is stuck back in that suffocating room, replaying Henderson's words, David's smug face, the current will, the one dated March 14th. It all festers, a poisonous wound. He thinks he's won. He's probably already on the phone with real estate agents, the auctioneer for Dad's art collection, the vultures who'll pick apart a life's work for pennies on the dollar. The thought stabs at me. It wasn't always like this venom between David and me. It simmered, sure, a low heat beneath the surface of forced family politeness, but it wasn't always this overt war. Dad remarried 10 years after Mom died. He was lonely. I understood that, even as a teenager. He'd met Eleanor, David's mother, on a cruise. She was pleasant enough. A bit bland, if I'm honest. But she made Dad smile again, and for that, I was grateful. David, however, was part of the package. He was a few years older than me, already in his early 20s, with an oily charm and an ambition that gleamed too brightly in his eyes. He'd slithered his way into Dad's affections with an ease that I, his own son, always found difficult. I remember those early family dinners. Dad, trying so hard to make us a blended family, Eleanor fussing over the food, and David always agreeing with Dad, always laughing a little too loud at his jokes, always making sure to subtly undermine anything I said or did. The sound of rain against the dining room window often accompanied those meals, a melancholic soundtrack to our strained attempts at unity. It was a big house, but it always felt too small with David in it. He had a way of sucking the air out of a room, of making everything about him. The scent of Eleanor's overcooked pot roast still haunts me sometimes, mixed with the damp earth smell from the garden after a downpour. My resentment of David wasn't just jealousy, though I'm sure there was an element of that. It was more an instinct, a deep-seated feeling that he was a predator, cloaked in the guise of a devoted stepson. He'd wheedled his way into the company, starting in an entry-level position Dad created for him, and then, with unnerving speed, climbed the ladder. Always with a plausible explanation, always with Dad's beaming approval. "David's a go-getter, Michael," Dad would say, his voice full of pride. "You could learn a thing or two from him." Those words used to sting. Now they just fuel the cold fire in my gut. My relationship with my father. It was complicated, especially in those last few years. After his first stroke, the one that weakened him but didn't steal his mind, we grew closer. We'd spend hours in his study, the rich scent of old books and his favorite Earl Grey tea filling the air. We talked about everything. Mom, his business, his regrets. He told me, his voice raspy but firm, "It'll all be yours one day, Michael. To protect. To build upon. You're a good man. A better man than I've been at times." His hand, frail and spotted, would grip mine, and the sincerity in his eyes was undeniable. How could the man who said those words sign a will that disinherited me? The memory torments me. Unless he didn't? Not really. Not in his right mind. The texture of the worn leather armchair in his study, where I often sat during those long talks, feels imprinted on my skin even now. That memory, that certainty of his love and his intentions, is what I cling to. Back in my own apartment, a modest place compared to the Pendleton estate David now claims, the city noise is a dull roar outside my window. I need to focus. Henderson's words, this version. That's the key. I pull out my laptop, the cool metal a stark contrast to the heat of my anger. My first power move is small, almost insignificant on the surface, but it's a start. I begin investigating. Family documents, old emails, anything I can find. I'm looking for discrepancies, for whispers of David's manipulations. The click of the keyboard is a steady, rhythmic sound in the quiet room, a counterpoint to the turmoil inside me. Each search query, each opened file, is a tiny shovel digging into the mountain of lies David has constructed. I feel a flicker of something I haven't felt since Henderson's pronouncement. Hope. It's a fragile thing, easily crushed, but it's there. The slightly bitter taste of the lukewarm coffee I'm gulping down does little to dispel the metallic tang of adrenaline in my mouth. An email. From Dad's solicitor, Henderson, to Dad, dated a year ago. Subject, Will amendments. My breath catches. I click it open. It's a discussion about minor changes, charitable donations, specific bequests of sentimental items. Nothing about disinheriting me. Nothing about giving David everything. This email refers to a will dated 3 years prior. So there is an older version. A much older version. The faint scent of dust motes dancing in the afternoon sun streaming through my window seems to highlight the digital text on the screen, illuminating a path forward. A week passes in a blur of sleepless nights and frantic secret research. I visit Henderson again under the guise of collecting those minor personal effects. He's sympathetic, almost apologetic, but firm. The March 14th will is the only valid one, he insists. He's an old man, set in his ways, and I realize he's either oblivious to David's machinations or simply too unwilling to confront the possibility of such a monstrous betrayal. He does, however, let slip a crucial piece of information, almost by accident. David's been eager to settle things, Henderson remarks, shuffling some papers uncomfortably. The smell of his stale pipe tobacco seems to cling to every surface in his office. He mentioned wanting to put the estate on the market, says he wants it all finalized within 30 days. Foreclosure, he said. 30 days. A ticking clock. David isn't just content with stealing my inheritance. He wants to liquidate it, erase every trace of our family's history, and disappear with the spoils. The audacity of it. The sheer naked greed stuns me momentarily. Then, the rage returns, cold and hard. 30 days. That's my deadline. The slightly sticky feeling of the polished armrests of Henderson's visitor chair grounds me as I process this new urgency. That night I can't sleep. The image of the estate being sold, of strangers walking through the rooms where I grew up, where Mom sang me to sleep, where Dad taught me to play chess. It's unbearable. I yearn for justice, for a way to expose David for the fraud he is. My father, in his final weeks, bedridden and weak, was a shadow of his former self. I remember visiting him in the sterile, impersonal room at the private clinic. The antiseptic smell was overwhelming, a stark contrast to the familiar comforts of home. He'd grasp my hand, his eyes clouded with pain and medication. "Michael," he'd whisper, his voice barely audible. Don't let him." He never finished the sentence. He'd drift off, his breathing shallow. At the time, I thought he was just confused, rambling. Now I'm certain he was trying to warn me about David, about the will. The memory is a fresh gash in my heart. The next day, I drive out to the Pendleton estate. David isn't there, according to the housekeeper, Mrs. Gable, who looks at me with worried eyes. She's been with our family since before I was born. I can tell she knows something is wrong. I wander through the silent house, each room a mausoleum of memories. The grand piano in the drawing room, its keys yellowed with age, still faintly smelling of lemon oil from its last polish. Mom used to play it. The library, with its floor-to-ceiling bookshelves, the comforting scent of aged paper and leather bindings a familiar embrace. This is what David wants to destroy. I find myself standing before my father's study. It's locked. Of course it is. David would have made sure of that. But I know Dad. He was a man of habit, of secrets. He once told me, "Every man should have a place where he keeps his truths, Michael. A place no one else knows." He'd been talking about his old roll-top desk, the one he'd had since before he married Mom. But he'd also had a small, discreet safe installed in the wall behind his favorite painting, a landscape of the Scottish Highlands. He'd shown it to me once, years ago, after a particularly nasty argument with Eleanor about finances. Just in case, he'd winked, a man needs his contingencies. My heart hammers against my ribs. Could it be? Could Dad have hidden something there? Something that would expose David, something that would restore my birthright? The painting of the Highlands hangs in its usual spot, serene and unsuspecting. The faint smell of turpentine and oil paints still clings to it. With trembling hands, I lift it from the wall. And there, just as I remembered, is the small, circular outline of the safe. It's an old model, one that requires a key, not a combination. David wouldn't know about this. He only saw the surface, the obvious. He never understood the depths of my father. The thrill of discovery, sharp and intoxicating, courses through me. Now, I just need to find the key. The key. Where would Dad hide a key to his most secret safe? I ransack his desk, my fingers skimming over familiar objects. His tarnished silver letter opener, the chipped mug holding an assortment of old pens, the worn leather blotter. Each item whispers a memory, a pang of loss. The faint, sweet scent of his pipe tobacco still lingers in the drawers, a ghostly presence. Nothing. I try the bookshelf, running my hands along the spines of his favorite classics, the places he might have hollowed out a hiding spot. Still nothing. Desperation begins to gnaw at me. What if David found it first? What if it's already gone? Then I remember. The humidor. The small, ornate wooden box I'd noticed in Henderson's office, now sitting on Dad's desk. Dad was meticulous about his cigars, but he was even more meticulous about things that mattered. I lift the lid. The rich, earthy smell of aged tobacco leaves fills my nostrils. And there, nestled amongst the expensive cigars, is a small, unassuming key. Old-fashioned brass. My heart leaps. The safe clicks open with a satisfying thud. Inside, it's not packed with valuables, not in the monetary sense. Instead, there's a slim, leather-bound journal, a stack of letters tied with a faded blue ribbon, and a thick, official-looking envelope. My hands tremble as I reach for the envelope first. The crisp, heavy paper feels significant. With a surge of adrenaline that leaves a metallic taste in my mouth, I tear it open. Last Will and Testament of Arthur Pendleton. Dated 5 years ago. 5 years before his first stroke, when he was in perfect health, his mind sharp as a tack. I scan the document, my eyes devouring the familiar legal jargon. And there it is, clear, unambiguous. The Pendleton estate, the company, everything. Bequeathed to me Michael Arthur Pendleton, his only son. The lake cottage, specifically named, also to me. David is mentioned, a modest trust fund, enough to live comfortably, but not enough to control an empire. This is the real will. A wave of triumph, fierce and potent, surges through me, quickly followed by a chilling realization. David's will, the one Henderson read, is a forgery, or, at best, coerced. The letters are from my mother to my father, love letters from their youth. Reading them feels like an intrusion, yet I can't stop. Her elegant script, the tender words. It's a glimpse into a love I barely remember. The journal is Dad's. His familiar, spidery handwriting fills the pages. It's not a diary of daily events, but of thoughts, of business dealings, of his concerns about David. David has a ruthlessness I find unsettling, one entry reads. He's charming, but there's a coldness there. Must keep an eye on him within the company. Dad knew. He saw the darkness in David, even if he didn't fully act on it. The words vindicate my own long-held suspicions, but they also bring a fresh wave of grief. Why didn't he do more to protect us, to protect his legacy? I need help. Henderson is a lost cause, too entrenched or too easily fooled, but his assistant, Sarah Jennings. She's young, ambitious, and I've always sensed a sharpness in her, a dissatisfaction with simply being Henderson's lackey. She'd been present at the reading, her expression unreadable, but I'd caught her looking at David with something that might have been disdain. The slight, floral scent of her perfume had been a fleeting, pleasant note in that otherwise grim room. It's a long shot, but she's my best hope. I call her the next day. "Sarah, it's Michael Pendleton. I need to talk to you. Urgently, not at the office." There's a pause. "Mr. Pendleton, Okay, there's a small coffee shop near my apartment. The Daily Grind. Tomorrow morning, 8 o'clock? Her voice is cautious, but there's an undercurrent of curiosity. The Daily Grind is bustling, the aroma of roasted coffee beans and freshly baked pastries, a welcome change from the stale air of law offices and grieving houses. Sarah is already there, tucked into a quiet corner booth, a steaming latte in front of her. She looks different out of the office, younger, less formal. Her eyes, a striking hazel, are intelligent and direct. "Mr. Pendleton." "Michael," she begins, her voice low. "What's this about?" I don't waste time. I lay it all out. My father's original will, his journal entries, my suspicions about David and the March 14th document. I watch her face carefully as I speak, gauging her reactions. She listens intently, her expression shifting from surprise to concern, and then to a quiet anger that mirrors my own. The clatter of cups and the low hum of conversation around us seem to fade as I tell my story. The slightly bitter taste of the black coffee I'm drinking matches the bitterness of my words. "I always thought there was something off about Mr. Carter," she says finally, her fingers tracing the rim of her latte cup. "The way he pushed Mr. Henderson to expedite the probate, the way he was so eager after your father's passing. It felt wrong." She looks up at me, a new resolve in her eyes. "And Mr. Henderson, he's a good man, but he trusts people too easily, especially people who flatter him. David Carter is very good at that." "So, you'll help me?" The question hangs in the air, heavy with unspoken hope. Sarah nods slowly. "Yes. What David is doing. It's not just illegal, it's monstrous. Your father deserved better." A bond forms between us in that instant, forged in shared indignation and a desire for justice. The warmth of the crowded coffee shop suddenly feels more comforting, less anonymous. Over the next 2 weeks, Sarah becomes my invaluable ally. She can't directly access Henderson's sealed files on the Pendleton estate without raising suspicion, but she knows his system. She knows his habits. She tells me about Henderson's old, almost forgotten off-site storage unit where he keeps archaic paper records, duplicates of everything. "He calls it his analog backup," she says, a small smile playing on her lips. "He hasn't been there in years." The faint, dusty smell she describes when talking about the firm's older files gives me an idea. My power move is to start building a legal case in the shadows, all while maintaining the illusion of a defeated, grieving son to David. I make sure to be seen looking forlorn, to let slip to mutual acquaintances how devastated I am, how I'm trying to come to terms with my father's wishes. Let David get complacent. Let him think he's already won. Meanwhile, Sarah feeds me tidbits of information. David has been making inquiries about liquidating Pendleton Industries assets. He's been meeting with aggressive investment bankers known for hostile takeovers and asset stripping. He's not just trying to take the money. He's trying to destroy everything Dad built. The emotional stakes skyrocket. This isn't just about my inheritance anymore. It's about preserving my father's life's work. Sarah and I meet secretly, poring over company records she manages to discreetly copy, looking for evidence of David's earlier machinations. The soft whir of her scanner in her small apartment late at night is a soundtrack to our growing conspiracy. We discover a pattern. David has a history of befriending wealthy, aging individuals, ingratiating himself, and then, somehow, ending up with a significant portion of their estates. There were whispers, accusations even, but nothing ever stuck. He was too careful, too good at covering his tracks. Until now. The slightly sweet scent of the cheap air freshener in her apartment is a strange counterpoint to the dark deeds we're uncovering. One evening, Sarah calls me, her voice tight with excitement and fear. "Michael, I found something. In the digital archives, misfiled. It's a series of emails between David and a specialist, a document specialist." My blood runs cold. "A forger?" "It looks that way. They're discussing aging paper, matching ink types, even mimicking signature styles, from just before March 14th. He's been forging documents for years. This isn't his first time. This is a practiced art." The revelation slams into me with physical force. David isn't just an opportunistic leech. He's a career criminal, hiding in plain sight. The faint hum of my refrigerator in the silence of my apartment suddenly sounds deafening as the implications sink in. The 30-day deadline looms. David is getting more arrogant, more blatant in his spending, already acting like the lord of the manor. He's planning a lavish party at the estate, an early celebration of life for Dad, he calls it. It's a thinly veiled victory lap. The cloying sweetness of the expensive flowers he's ordered for the party, which Mrs. Gable described to me over the phone with disgust, makes me feel nauseous. And then, the final twist of the knife. I'm scrolling through social media, a mindless distraction when I see it. A post from an old college friend, a picture from an engagement party, and there, beaming on the arm of a smirking David Carter, is Emily. My Emily. My ex-girlfriend. The woman I'd loved. The woman who'd shattered my heart when she left me a year ago, saying I wasn't ambitious enough. The shock punches the air from my lungs. David isn't just stealing my inheritance, my father's legacy. He's taking my past too, twisting it, defiling it. The screen glows in the dim light of my living room. The happy couple frozen in their moment of triumph, and all I can feel is a cold, consuming rage. The betrayal is complete, multifaceted, and utterly devastating. The game has just become intensely personal. Seeing Emily with David, it's like a physical blow. My lungs constrict, and for a moment, I can't breathe. The smiling faces on the screen, so triumphant, so oblivious to the wreckage they've caused, mock me. Emily, who cried when a bird hit her window. Emily, who I thought was the most compassionate person I knew. How could she align herself with someone like David? The betrayal is a venomous snake, coiling around my heart, squeezing. Did she leave me for him? Was our entire relationship a lie, a stepping stone? The questions swarm, stinging and relentless. The silence in my apartment is broken only by my own ragged breathing. The initial shock, the raw, emotional devastation leaves me numb. I sit there in the dark, the phone eventually slipping from my nerveless fingers, clattering onto the cheap laminate floor. Hours pass. The first gray light of dawn seeps through the blinds, painting stripes across the room, illuminating the dust motes dancing in the air, a stark contrast to the darkness that has enveloped my soul. The faint, stale scent of yesterday's coffee hangs in the air, a reminder of my obsessive quest. A quest that now feels so much more personal, so much more desperate. But numbness, I discover, is a temporary shield. Beneath it, the embers of rage begin to glow again, fanned by this new, more intimate treachery. Emily and David. It's a grotesque parody of everything I once held dear. And as the sun fully rises, a new, harder resolve crystallizes within me. I won't just expose David for the fraud he is. I'll dismantle his entire life, piece by painstaking piece, just as he's tried to do to mine. This isn't just about an inheritance anymore. This is about justice. It's about survival. The city outside my window begins to stir, its distant rumbles a call to action. My late-night planning sessions with Sarah intensify. My small kitchen table becomes our war room, littered with documents, printouts, and half-empty mugs. The bitter smell of black coffee, brewed strong and gulped down in copious amounts, becomes the constant perfume of our conspiracy. We are a strange pair, the disinherited son and the disillusioned legal assistant, united against a common enemy. The fluorescent light of my kitchen hums overhead, casting harsh shadows on our determined faces. "He's getting cocky," Sarah says one night, tapping a manicured finger on a printout of David's increasingly lavish expenditure reports from the estate accounts. "Look at this. Entertainment expenses, wardrobe upgrade. He's spending your father's money like it's water." The crisp rustle of the papers she's handling seems to punctuate her disgust. "Let him," I say, my voice tight. "The higher he flies, the harder he'll fall." My transformation from victim to strategist is almost complete. The grief is still there, a dull ache in my chest, but it's overlaid now with a steely determination. I feel sharper, more focused. David's arrogance will be his undoing. We devise our counterstrike. It needs to be precise, irrefutable. Sarah's intel about the off-site storage for Henderson's old files is our best lead for more concrete proof of the original will's undisputed validity, something beyond just the copy Dad kept. "Henderson's incredibly specific about the labeling system there," Sarah explains, sketching a layout of the storage facility on a napkin. "Everything is chronological, cross-referenced. If there are older versions of your father's will officially filed with the firm, they'll be there." The scratch of her pen on the napkin is a small, hopeful sound. But we need more than just an old will. We need to prove the March 14th will was obtained through undue influence or forgery. We need to nail David himself. That's where my quiet power move comes in. David's celebration of life party is in 3 days. He'll be there, preening, surrounded by people he's trying to impress, and Emily will be on his arm. The thought still twists something inside me, but I push the emotion down. I need to be cold, calculating. "I'm going to the party," I tell Sarah. She looks at me, surprised. "Michael, are you sure? Can you handle that?" Her concern is genuine, and it touches me. Our late-night sessions, the shared goal, the hushed confidences, a bond has formed between us, an unspoken trust that is rapidly deepening into something more. I find myself noticing the way her eyes light up when she's onto a new idea, the determined set of her jaw, the faint scent of almonds from her hand lotion when she passes me a document. These small things are an unexpected solace. "I have to," I say. "It's the perfect opportunity." He'll be relaxed, boastful. He won't be expecting me to fight back. Not really. The plan is risky. I'll wear a wire. Try to get David to talk, to brag, to admit something incriminating. It's a long shot, the kind of thing that happens in movies, not real life. But my life has started to feel like a badly written drama anyway. What's one more improbable plot point? The slight, Almost imperceptible hum of the recording device I test later feels like a tiny buzzing insect against my skin. A secret weapon. The day of the party arrives, gray and overcast, mirroring my mood. The Pendleton estate, my childhood home, is already swarming with caterers and florists when I arrive. The air is thick with the cloying scent of lilies and roses, a funereal perfume for a celebration. I see David from across the grand hall, holding court, Emily plastered to his side, laughing at something he said. She sees me. Her smile falters for a fraction of a second, a flicker of something in her eyes. Guilt? Surprise? Then it's gone, replaced by a cool indifference that cuts deeper than any anger could. I play my part. The grieving, broken son. I accept condolences with a downcast gaze. I make small talk. I watch David. He's in his element, expansive, charming everyone. He's even wearing one of Dad's favorite silk cravats. The audacity is breathtaking. The murmur of conversations, the clinking of glasses, the saccharine strains of a string quartet in the background. It all feels surreal. Finally, I manage to get him alone, in Dad's study, under the pretext of wanting to discuss a personal memento. The room is filled with the ghostly scent of Dad's books and old wood, a sanctuary now violated. "Michael," David says, his voice oozing false concern. "You're looking better. I was worried about you." "I'm managing," I say, keeping my voice carefully neutral. The recording device is live. Every beat of my heart feels like a drum against my ribs. It's just a lot to take in. The will, especially. David pours himself a generous brandy from Dad's decanter. The rich, oaky aroma fills the air. "Arthur knew what he was doing, Michael. He wanted me to take care of things. He trusted me." "He trusted you with everything, it seems," I say, a slight edge to my voice I can't quite control. "Even his signature on that last will?" David chuckles, a low, unpleasant sound. "He was weak, Michael, confused. He needed guidance, someone to help him make the right decisions." He takes a long sip of brandy, his eyes glittering. "And I was there for him, unlike some people." "Guidance?" I press. "Or did you just guide his hand on the paper, David?" He leans closer, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. The smell of brandy on his breath is suddenly overpowering. "Let's just say Arthur was very agreeable in his final days. People are, when they're facing the end. They want peace, and I helped him find it. And if a few documents needed tidying up to reflect his true wishes he was too muddled to articulate clearly, well, that's just good estate management, isn't it?" He winks. "Bingo. It's not a full confession of forgery, but it's close. It's an admission of manipulation, of taking advantage of a dying man. Coupled with Sarah's evidence of the document specialist, it's damning." My hand instinctively goes to my chest, to the small device hidden there. The smooth, cool plastic is a reassuring presence. My quiet triumph is short-lived. As I'm leaving the study, trying to look as dejected as possible, David calls out, "Oh, and Michael?" I turn. His eyes narrow, a flicker of suspicion in their depths. "You've been very quiet lately. Almost too quiet. You're not planning anything foolish, are you? Because that would be a shame. For everyone." The implied threat hangs in the air, cold and sharp. The estate sale date is just over a week away. He's getting nervous. The sudden tension in the air is palpable, like the calm before a storm. He suspects something. I have to move faster. The next morning, Sarah calls me, her voice frantic. "Michael, there's a problem, a big one!" The usual background hum of her office is absent. She must be somewhere private. "What is it, Sarah? What's wrong?" My heart plummets. I overheard Henderson on the phone. He was flustered. He was talking to David. David was asking about the off-site storage. He specifically asked if there were any other copies of your father's documents stored there, any older wills. A cold dread washes over me. And what did Henderson say? He confirmed it. He told David about the analog backup. Michael, David said he was sending someone over there this afternoon to retrieve some old company files for archiving. He said Henderson didn't need to bother himself with it. Sarah's voice is trembling. Michael, he's going to destroy them. He's going to destroy the real will. The click of the line as she hangs up sounds like a death knell. He knows, or he suspects enough to take no chances. He's going to destroy the only definitive proof I have. I have to get there first. The drive to the off-site storage facility is a desperate race against time. Every red light, every slow-moving truck feels like a personal affront, a deliberate obstacle thrown in my path. My knuckles are white on the steering wheel, my jaw clenched so tight it aches. The acrid scent of hot asphalt and exhaust fumes from the city traffic does nothing to calm the frantic beating of my heart. Sarah's warning echoes in my mind. He's going to destroy the real will. I can't let that happen. That document is my only tangible proof, the key to undoing David's treachery. The storage facility is a grim, utilitarian place on the outskirts of the city. Rows of identical metal doors under a vast, unforgiving sky. The metallic tang of impending rain is in the air. I find Henderson's unit number, my breath catching in my throat. Please let me be in time. Please! I fumble with the lock I'd managed to get a key for, thanks to Sarah's knowledge of Henderson's spare key in the magnetic box under the office fern habit. It clicks open. The unit is small, crammed floor to ceiling with dusty archive boxes. The musty smell of old paper and decaying cardboard is overwhelming. I frantically search for the boxes labeled Pendleton Estate, my eyes scanning the faded ink. There, a stack of them, tucked away in a back corner. But as I reach for the top one, I hear it, the sound of a vehicle pulling up outside. Footsteps. My blood runs cold. David, or his goons. They're here. There's no time to search for the specific will now. I grab the entire box labeled Pendleton Wills and Codicils Historical. It's heavy, awkward. As I turn to leave, the unit door creaks open further, and David himself steps in, flanked by two thuggish-looking men I don't recognize. He sees me, sees the box in my arms, and a slow, cold smile spreads across his face. Michael, 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 he says, his voice dripping with mock disappointment. Always snooping where you don't belong. What have we got there? Some old love letters from Mummy? His men block the doorway. I'm trapped. The suffocating feeling of the closed study room from the party pales in comparison to the claustrophobia of this tiny, dusty tomb with these three predators closing in. The dim light from the single bare bulb overhead casts long, distorted shadows, making them look even more menacing. You know damn well what this is, David, I say, my voice surprisingly steady despite the adrenaline pounding through my veins. I lower the box to the floor, a silent challenge. Do I? He takes a step closer, his eyes glittering with malice. The cheap, musky scent of his cologne assaults my nostrils. All I see is a desperate little boy playing at being a man, trying to cling to something that was never his. It was his, a new voice cuts in, sharp and clear. Sarah. She steps into the doorway, pushing past one of the thugs who looks momentarily surprised. She's holding her phone up, recording. And you know it, David. Or should I say Mr. Carter? David's smile falters for a split second. Well, well, the loyal little assistant. Come to save your pathetic champion? I came to make sure the truth comes out, Sarah says, her gaze unwavering. The courage she's showing humbles me. This is it, the direct confrontation. No more hiding, no more pretense. The truth, David laughs, a harsh, ugly sound that grates on my nerves. You want to talk about truth, Michael? Let me tell you about truth. He stalks closer, his face inches from mine. The truth is, your father was a weak, sentimental old fool. He built an empire, yes, but he didn't have the stomach to run it properly in the end. He was going to let it all crumble, let it be picked apart by competitors, all because he couldn't make the tough decisions. And you could? I spit out, my anger finally flaring, hot and unrestrained. Damn right I could! David's voice rises, his composure cracking. I've spent years propping up that company, making the hard calls your sainted father shied away from. Years, while you were off playing at being an artist, living off his generosity, contributing nothing. His words are a torrent of resentment, a dam of bitterness finally breaking. The stale, dusty air in the storage unit seems to crackle with the raw emotion. He loved me! I shout back, the words torn from my throat. He wouldn't have disinherited me. That will you presented is a fraud! David throws his head back and laughs again. Loved you. He pitied you. You were a constant reminder of his first wife, the one he could never quite live up to. And as for that will... He leans in again, his voice dropping to a venomous hiss. Let's just say I helped him see reason. He was fading, confused. I merely guided his hand towards the inevitable, towards someone who could actually protect his legacy. Me. The raw, unadulterated confession hangs in the air. He's admitting it, admitting to manipulation, to taking advantage of a dying man. My emotional climax hits not as an explosion, but as a sudden, icy calm. My anger recedes, replaced by a cold, hard certainty. Thank you, David, I say, my voice surprisingly even. That's all I needed to hear. My power move. I reach into my pocket and pull out the small digital recorder I've had with me, the one I used at the party. I press stop, then play. David's voice, confessing his guidance, fills the small space. Let's just say Arthur was very agreeable in his final days. I helped him find it, if a few documents needed. Tidying up. The color drains from David's face. His eyes dart from the recorder to me, then to Sarah, still filming. For the first time, I see fear in him. Real fear. It's a deeply satisfying sight. The faint whir of Sarah's phone recording is the only sound for a long moment. You recorded me? He stammers, his bravado vanishing. Every word, I confirm. Just like I recorded you at the party. And just like Sarah is recording you now. One of his thugs makes a move towards me, but David holds up a hand. He's thinking, calculating. The cornered rat is always the most dangerous. Then, the plot twist I never saw coming. A sly, cunning look returns to David's eyes. You think you're so clever, don't you, Michael? You think this little recording, this old box of papers is going to save you? He lets out a short, humorless laugh. You have no idea what you're dealing with. Oh, I think I do, I say. You're a con man, David, a fraud, and you're about to be exposed. Am I? He smiles, a truly chilling expression. Let me tell you something about dear old Dad. He had his secrets, too. Secrets he wouldn't want aired. Secrets that could ruin the precious Pendleton name forever. And I know every single one of them. The stakes escalate, a cold dread gripping me. What is he talking about? He's bluffing, Sarah says, but there's a new note of uncertainty in her voice. The smell of damp concrete from the floor of the unit suddenly feels oppressive. Am I? David's gaze locks onto Sarah. Ask her. Ask your little girlfriend here. She knows a thing or two about family secrets, doesn't she? After all, her mother worked for my mother, Eleanor, for years, didn't she? Sarah. Cleaned her house. Heard all the lovely little chats. My head whips towards Sarah. Her face is pale, her eyes wide with a mixture of fear and something else. Guilt? Sarah? I ask, my voice barely a whisper. She looks away, unable to meet my eyes. Michael, I was going to tell you. The character revelation hits me like a punch to the gut. Sarah? Her mother worked for Eleanor? This whole time she's had a connection, a deeper insight into David's world that she never shared. The sense of betrayal, fresh and sharp, pierces through my focus. Can I even trust her? David senses my shock, my disarray, and presses his advantage. That's right, Michael. Your little ally here isn't as impartial as you thought. She has her own reasons for wanting to see me fall. He turns his attention back to me, his voice like silk-wrapped steel. So, here's the deal. You walk away. You destroy your little recordings. You forget about this box of ancient history. You let me settle the estate as planned. In return, your father's indiscretions stay buried. The Pendleton name remains intact, your precious memories untarnished. He gestures around the grimy storage unit. But if you pursue this, I will unleash every ugly truth. I will drag your father's name, your mother's memory, everything you hold dear, through the mud. You'll get your justice. Maybe. But you'll lose everything else. He pauses, letting his threat sink in. The distant rumble of thunder outside underscores his words. He's threatening to destroy my father's reputation. The choice he's offering is stark: my inheritance or my father's good name, safety or justice. My mind reels. This is a nightmare. What secrets could Dad have had that were so terrible? And Sarah? Her silence now feels deafening. The air in the unit is thick with unspoken words, with fear, with the acrid smell of desperation. David smiles, seeing my turmoil. Your choice, Michael. What's it going to be? David's ultimatum hangs heavy in the stale, dusty air of the storage unit. My father's reputation or my rightful inheritance. He thinks he's backed me into a corner, that I'll crumble under the threat of scandal. The faint, metallic scent of the old metal shelving around us suddenly seems like the bars of a cage. His thugs shift, sensing his renewed confidence. Sarah looks at me, her eyes filled with apology and a silent plea I can't quite decipher. I take a deep breath, the taste of dust and fear still coating my tongue. For a moment, I falter. The thought of Dad's name being dragged through the mud, of his memory being tarnished by whatever secrets David holds. It's a heavy weight. But then I look at David's smug, triumphant face, the sheer, unadulterated greed in his eyes. I think of my mother, of Dad's true wishes, of the life, the legacy he wanted for me. And the strength, cold and clear, surges back. You really think you've thought of everything, don't you, David? I say, my voice calm, almost conversational. This is my strategic revelation, the one I've been holding back, the ace up my sleeve. He scoffs. I always do. No, you don't, I reply. You see, while you were busy plotting to destroy old wills, I was wondering about something else. About why a man as meticulous as my father, knowing your nature, and yes, Dad knew your nature, I found his journals, would leave any ambiguity, any loophole you could exploit, especially in his final days. David's smirk wavers slightly. He was sick, confused. Maybe, I concede. But he was also prepared, long before he got sick. I pause, letting the silence stretch, the only sound the distant, mournful wail of a train horn miles away. He had a contingency, a final one, something even you, with all your scheming, wouldn't anticipate. I reach into my inner jacket pocket, not for the recorder this time, but for a different envelope. It's newer, crisper than the one from the safe. My power move execution. "What's that?" David asks, his voice sharp with suspicion. "Another touching letter from beyond the grave?" "Not exactly," I say. I pull out the single sheet of paper it contains. "This, David, is a certified, notarized legal instrument. A deed, to be precise. The deed to the Pendleton family estate, signed by my father, and by me." The air crackles with sudden tension. David stares at the paper, then at me, his eyes narrowing. "What trick is this? The estate was bequeathed in the will I hold." "Ah, but that's where you're wrong," I say, a slow smile spreading across my own face. "You see, Dad and I took care of the estate's primary ownership structure years ago, after his first health scare, when he was perfectly lucid and under no duress. We established a joint tenancy with right of survivorship for the main property. It means, upon his death, the estate automatically and immediately passed to me. Entirely outside of probate, entirely beyond the reach of any will, old or new, forged or legitimate." The crisp sound of the legal paper as I hold it up seems to fill the silence. It's a sound David won't soon forget. His face, a mask of arrogant confidence moments before, begins to crumble. That's not possible," he stammers, his voice losing its silky menace. "Henderson never mentioned—" "Henderson wouldn't necessarily know the full implications unless he specifically searched for this type of deed transfer outside the probate process," I say. "It was filed directly with the county registrar. Quietly. Efficiently. Dad wanted to ensure the family home, the heart of his legacy, was secure. No matter what. He knew you'd come for the company, for the cash. He accepted he might not be able to stop that if you were determined enough. But the house, the land, that was sacrosanct." David looks stunned, his mind visibly reeling as he tries to process this. His thugs look confused, their bravado deflating. Sarah lets out a small gasp, then a slow smile of understanding spreads across her face. "So, the will, the one he's trying to probate, controls his personal assets, yes," I continue. "His stocks, his liquid funds, his art. And that, David, is where your forged will, your coercion of a dying man, your document specialist, and your little recording here today will come into play. You might have a claim to his monetary assets if your fraudulent will holds up, but the estate? The house you're currently trying to sell from under me in 30 days? You never had it. You can't sell what you don't own." The emotional payoff is immense, watching his edifice of lies shatter before my eyes. He looks utterly defeated. "And as for those family secrets you're so keen to share?" I press on, my voice hardening. "Go ahead. Tell the world. Whatever they are, they're part of my father's story, part of his humanity. I won't be blackmailed by you. His true legacy isn't some flawless, sanitized image. It's in the company he built, the people he helped, the love he had for his family. And it's in the truth, something you wouldn't understand. My character growth feels complete in that moment. I am no longer a victim, but a protector of that truth." Just then, as if on cue, the wail of sirens grows louder, closer. Red and blue lights begin to flash outside the storage facility, painting the grimy walls in stark, pulsating colors. The heavy thud of official footsteps approaches. David's head snaps up, panic flaring in his eyes. "What? Who?" "That," I say calmly, "would be the police. And I believe some fraud investigators from the district attorney's office. Sarah made a call while you were so busy confessing. They have copies of everything. The recordings, the original will from the safe, Dad's journal, the emails about the forger, and now your very enlightening admissions here today. Justice served. The legal authorities are here. 2 uniformed officers and a pair of plainclothes detectives enter the unit. The atmosphere changes instantly, charged with the grim authority of the law. "David Carter?" one of the detectives says, his voice all business. "We need to ask you some questions regarding the last will and testament of Arthur Pendleton and allegations of fraud and coercion." David looks like a trapped animal. His eyes dart towards his thugs, but they're already backing away, hands raised. They're hired muscle, not fanatics. They know when the game is up. The sharp click of handcuffs a moment later is the sweetest sound I've ever heard. His reign is over. As they lead a stunned, protesting David away, one of the detectives takes the box of old wills and my recording device as evidence. The other speaks to Sarah, taking her statement. I stand there, amidst the dusty boxes, a profound sense of relief washing over me, so potent it almost brings me to my knees. It's done. The faint scent of rain on the breeze drifting in from the open doorway feels like the world cleansing itself. Sarah walks over to me, her earlier guilt replaced by a tentative smile. "You were amazing, Michael." "We were amazing," I correct her, meeting her gaze. The unspoken questions about her mother, her connection to Eleanor, still linger. But for now, the shared victory is enough. "Thank you, Sarah. I couldn't have done this without you." "Your father," she begins, then hesitates. "He was a complicated man. Eleanor, David's mother. She wasn't always kind. My mother saw a lot, heard a lot. I guess a part of me always wanted to see David get what he deserved, not just for what he did to your father, but for the misery he and his mother caused others, too." Her confession is quiet, honest. It doesn't erase the sting of her earlier omission, but it explains it. Our relationship resolution isn't complete, but there's a path forward, a foundation of shared experience, and, I realize with a start, a deepening affection. One of the detectives approaches me. "Mr. Pendleton, we'll need a full statement from you, of course, but based on what we've seen and heard, Mr. Carter is facing some very serious charges." He pauses. "There's one other thing. In your father's journal, the one from the safe, he made an entry the day before he signed that March 14th will with Mr. Carter." My brow furrows. "What did it say?" The detective looks down at his notes. The soft rustle of his notepad paper seems loud in the suddenly quiet unit. It says, "David insists on this new will. He has something on me, something from long ago. I am weak, and I fear for the family name if I resist. But Michael knows where to find the truth, and the house is safe. That is all that matters now. He will know what to do." The final twist. My father knew. He knew about David's ruthlessness. He knew David had leverage, and he signed that fraudulent will to protect some old secret, to protect the family name. But he also trusted me. He left me clues, the journal, the safe, knowing I would fight. And he protected the one thing he knew I cherished most, our home. The place where his true legacy lived. He hadn't abandoned me. He had been protecting me, in his own flawed, complicated way. The realization is a wave of emotion, grief, love understanding, that finally liberates me from the last vestiges of doubt. He'd known. And he'd trusted me to be the master of my own stroke.